Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host,
Grandma Gail.
So this week we are talking to Allie Jackson. You might know her from TikTok. Her account is Finding Mr. Height. She also is a dating coach and has a podcast called Finding Mr. Height with a co-host. We talk all about dating. So this is really like a dating advice kind of episode, especially like how to respond to text messages when you get them. I'm always asking you, Grandma, like, what should I say back? Like, when should I respond? Should I wait 5 minutes? Should I like say this or that? Right. And I think you're very much like, be honest, right?
Yes, I am. I believe the less amount of texting and the more personal contact you have with the person, really, if you like them, is really pays off. You know what? Texting is just very impersonal to me. I know it's a way of life now, but I still like to hear a voice and I like to see them in person and whatever. So whatever works for you guys is fine. I think I would like to see things to go back to normal dating so people could stop worrying about the little tiny things that happen in everyday life and really find Mr. Right or Miss Right.
And I will say, like, I don't love to text when I'm dating someone new because it's like just anxiety inducing to like nitpick every single thing.
Correct. That's what I always say. That's what happens. And you lose the big picture. He could be she could be really a nice person, and you're going to look at that text a million times and read a different interpretation in each one. And I think that's bad.
The only time I love texting is like if someone's a really good like flirt banter kind of texter.
Yeah, well, I'm sick of that kind of dating, Kimmy. Think you're getting too old for that.
Yeah, it's
good for college.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know. I still think it's like nice to have a little bit of that, but it's definitely like better to have more of an in-person relationship than like a virtual.
And COVID is over, so we can stop texting a little and get on with our real lives.
Yeah. Okay, so enjoy the conversation with Allie. So guys, we are joined by Allie Jackson from the TikTok account Finding Mr. Height. She's also a dating coach and has her own podcast, also called Finding Mr. Height. Allie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Allie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Go back a little bit just because we skipped it of like where you live, your age, and your current relationship status.
Yeah, so I live in New York City, in Brooklyn, to be specific. I've lived here for 13 years. So I think a New Yorker. I think 10 years makes me a New Yorker.
Absolutely.
Really? Oh, I always fight with people over this. Well, I was born in New York City. So I'm always like, if you were not born here or raised here, like you're not. But I know that's not really true.
I've heard that I can claim 10 years, but I understand it's not for real. But I'm from California originally, so I've been out here for a long time now. I'm 34. I'm gonna be 35 in a few weeks, and I am single. I started Finding Mr. Height because I was single and wanting to talk about it, and ended up in a relationship for a little while I had the account, but have been single for about a year and a half since then.
Right, I'm going to ask the first question. What does height mean?
Okay.
What is the height?
So I'm 6 feet tall.
Now we get it. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a pun. So it's like Finding Mr. Right, Finding Mr. Height.
Okay.
I'm tall. Although I get a lot of comments on it. It's like not the point anymore. It was originally supposed to be a pun, but like, and I'm sure we'll get to this, the account started as just my own dating stories. I did not intend for it to become a business, but it did. And now here we are. And I'm like, well, it's too late to change the name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm curious, like, would you only date someone taller than 6 foot?
I have tried dating people that are shorter than me, and it just hasn't worked. I think we could go down a whole diatribe about like the way society tells women that we need to be small and dainty, and like how that makes us feel when we don't feel that way. But I think on the flip side, society tells men that they need to be big and strong. And I have often found that when I'm dating somebody or out with somebody who is shorter than me, whether he's normally shorter than me or whether I'm wearing heels, it's a bigger issue for him than it is for me.
I was going to follow up with that. Like, I think that guys can get quite insecure about that.
You see, in our case, we're 5'2", so we could date anybody.
Yeah.
See, that's the advantage of being short. I finally found one advantage. There are very few disadvantages of being short. This is one of them.
Well, and I always say when I see really short women dating really tall men, I'm like, you could date whoever you want.
Exactly.
Anyone.
Yeah. Also, I take the tall ones for you.
Right. It also just seems inconvenient and awkward to like, I wouldn't want to date someone who's a foot taller than me.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I will say though, like you were hitting on it a little bit, but like there's a societal thing of like tall, dark, and handsome. And like every girl, no matter what height, usually finds that attractive. You can also find short attractive.
I love short.
Well, I think we were actually talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
It's because you know short.
I know short, and I think my father was short and my brothers were short. So that was what I was used to. I never saw tall. And my husband is like 5'10". I mean, I thought he was a giant. I mean, he was too tall. I'm surprised I gave him a second date because most of my dates were very small.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
well, Allie, do you feel like the pool is smaller? Like either whether, I don't know if you're on apps, but if you're filtering apps above 6 foot or at a bar, let's say nobody there is tall, like what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely smaller. I think statistically right now in the US, about 15% of men are over 6 feet.
Oh,
that's so
So
small.
it's
not a lot.
Yeah.
That's not a lot at all. You got to
hang.
hang around in the basketball courts.
I mean, I play volleyball, so I hang around a lot
okay.
of tall people, but somehow I've never met anybody playing. But then I say like, okay, well, I am in the top 1% as a 6 foot tall female. I'm in the top 1%. So I don't think the top 15%, I don't think that's too much to ask personally. Right. But I do find that, Kim, like when I'm out and I was out the other day with friends and I thought to myself, I can see over every single person in this room.
It's a great advantage though. I always wonder,
You'll
like
never know.
I'll never lose my friends. Like you always know where everyone is.
I remember I was at a volleyball tournament once and we were packed into a bar years ago and I was like the shortest person and I felt so claustrophobic, like I couldn't breathe. And I thought, wow, this is what short women must feel all the time. This is terrifying.
Yes. So what came first, the TikTok or the podcast?
Oh, the TikTok. So I actually had Instagram first and I was posting on my own personal account about going on dates and just kind of holding myself accountable, honestly. Like I want to meet somebody and I'm not going to meet him in my living room. So I got to go out and I'm going to post about it so that people will ask me what's going on and I will have to continue to go on dates. So I started doing that and people started following me like friends of friends. And all of a sudden I had all these strangers following my personal Instagram account. And so I made Finding Mr. Height and then I transitioned it to TikTok and started giving advice. People started asking, I started giving advice and it just kind of, it snowballed. And then I thought, I think this could be a business. And so I founded the business and the podcast.
So when you say business, is that like coaching or talk to us?
Yeah. So I offer a range of services in dating and relationship coaching, mostly focused on dating apps. My most popular services are regarding dating app profiles and helping people with their swiping strategies and how to send better messages and how to get on more dates. But I also talk a lot about direct communication. I help people talk about things that are bothering them. I help people deal with their anxious thoughts that they're having and how to communicate that to their partners or to the people that they're dating.
You became a shrink.
I'm very careful to say that I am not.
You literally became a shrink.
I'm very careful to say that I am not.
I
I will say though, that I do have there are several therapists that now refer their clients to me.
Oh.
Which is
because
like,
dating information is not most people's specialty. And
No.
you're one and we're one. We do it as well. So we get questions all the time.
Actually, and not only questions, I forgot to tell you, like people on TikTok have been commenting saying like, this is I'm a licensed therapist and I would have given the same advice. So sometimes like wisdom
Yeah.
or just experience. Like if you're very intrigued by dating or if you've done a lot of it, like it gives you a little bit of insight to give people, I think.
Absolutely. I also have a consumer psychology background. I'm in retail as my full-time job. And I often equate dating and dating apps to e-commerce, and like the way that consumers visit and view an e-com website is very similar to the way that I think people peruse dating apps and, convert or not.
Right.
So that's so interesting. So you mean like if you're shopping on Revolve or something and like you're going through, oh, this would look good, this wouldn't. It's like the same psychology as when you're swiping through people's profiles.
Yeah. So I think about it, we call it the funnel in e-commerce. It's called the marketing funnel. So like when you're looking at a site, you're at the very top of the funnel. Well, really before you even go to the site. But then as you're browsing through, like say Revolve, right? You're looking at the homepage and it has tons and tons of different items. Something catches your eye, you click on it. Now you're further down in the funnel. You click on something. Let's say you like a dress. You click on that dress. You're going to read more in the description. You're going to click through additional pictures of that dress. You're maybe going to read reviews, which is something that dating apps maybe could use. But you're going to do more research before ultimately deciding, hey, I'm going to put this dress into my cart. And then you might add the dress to your cart. And then you're like, okay, now I'm seeing this price in front of me. Is that a price I really want to pay? And you're making more decisions before ultimately purchasing it. And it sounds a little like dehumanizing, but I don't mean it to sound that way. It's more just like the mechanics of it are very similar to when you're scrolling through an app and you're seeing all these pictures. And then you say, hey, she looks interesting. Let me look at the rest of her pictures. Let me read her bio. Let me talk to her. Let's go on a date.
Yeah. I mean, and in that way, you would hope that like the extra research that you're doing will come in handy for you. And like, hopefully the outcome would be better, like versus, I mean, you're going to disagree with this, but she's, for example, grandma's like very big on fix ups and meeting someone that way. But like, I'm not going to have the reviews and like the billion pictures or whatever. If I do a fix up, like the outcome might not be as rewarding.
No, it might not, but on the other hand, it might be more trustworthy. That's always my fear with the apps. Do you have an average age of your client that you would tend to have? I mean, are they usually in their 20s? Are they in their 30s and not been dating not been dating that much? I mean, where do you see your most of your clients come in what
My
category?
Generally around my age, which I'm, like I said, I'm almost 35. I would say most of my clients are in their late 20s to late 30s.
Which is interesting because they haven't been dating, I guess, or they have a new type of dating. They're not sure how to date in this world.
It's not that we're not sure. Like, I mean, you see this with me every day. It's like, I know how to date. It's not like I haven't been dating, but I still have questions that I come to you with. Like, I still don't, like, if a guy texts me, I still am like, I don't know what to respond. Like, do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand. I understand, but it fascinates me to see that an older woman or man needs that kind of advice if they've been dating, throughout their 20s. By the time you're in your 30s, you should be pretty well set on how to date or what these catchphrases are. I don't know. I guess I'm completely wrong because I really don't. I guess they are needy still. They still need advice.
I think the problem is nobody ever tells you how to date. Nobody ever tells you how to do this stuff. And if you are single, then and if you want a long-term partner, if that's your goal, that's not everybody's goal. But for my clients, it is.
Right.
If you want a long-term partner and you don't have one, then your approach has not gotten you what you've wanted.
Okay. Right.
So I think that's where people are saying like, hey, we hire coaches in so many other parts of our life, like if we're trying to change careers, we look at a career coach. We're on LinkedIn. We're fixing up our resume. We're asking people's opinions on our resume. We're sending it around.
Right.
Why shouldn't dating be the same way?
Right. You're absolutely right.
I want to go through, Allie, your text scripts that you have to explain to our listeners. Whenever you're like saying to your friends, like, oh, I've been ghosted. Like, what should I text him? Allie has things on her website, kind of like a template, right? That you can just respond for that situation in a way that I guess has been vetted by you. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the reason I started doing these text scripts is because people were asking me exactly that question. Hey, I got ghosted, or hey, I got stood up, or I went on a great first date, but I haven't heard from him. What the heck? All sorts of things. And I find that something that really helps people is having a template to start with to take some of the anxiety out of it. So there's anxiety around sending a text like that, right? Especially if it's calling somebody out for doing something shitty. Can I curse?
No, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely. We do it all the time.
Fantastic. So there's the anxiety behind sending it, but there's also the anxiety behind what do I say? And so my text scripts try to help with that piece. They try to give you at least a jumping off point, edit it for your situation, edit it for your voice. Obviously these are my voice, but people have their own words that they would use, but at least you have a framework and you can take some of that scariness out of it.
I was hoping to go through like 2 or 3 and scenarios and see what you would say in your text script. And then maybe we can compare it to what grandma would say in that situation.
Grandma's a mess.
You help me write text messages all the time.
I know, but
they're so off. But like I'll be like, he texted me that like he's been so busy or whatever, and you'd be like, listen, give me a call. It's like so not how people speak.
I understand that. I'm a throwback to the 50s.
Yeah.
Don't remind me. Okay.
Okay, so the first one, why don't we do when they cancel a date? How would you respond to that?
So I think context matters.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully when they cancel a date, they give you a reason. And depending on what that reason is, I think really impacts what you're going to say, because let's say they cancel a date and they tell you a really serious situation that's going on. The way that you're going to respond to that is going to be very different from if they just say like, hey, I can't make it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So like to caveat it with that, but I feel very strongly that the person who cancels a date is responsible for rescheduling it.
Mm-hmm.
I think like if you cancel a date, the ball is in your court. And so typically what I will say, unless there's something like, oh my God, are you okay, that I need to say, I'll say something like, that's too bad. I was excited to see you or excited to meet you if it's a first date. I hope everything's okay. And I'm looking forward to what you plan for our rain check.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Very good.
I agree too. I wonder though, from the other person, like when they cancel, should they say should they give an option for another date right away, or no? Like, do they have to say like, hey, I can't make it tonight. How's next Thursday instead?
I think it depends, right? I mean, it depends on the circumstance. If a parent or is ill, or if they have to attend to something really serious, if they say, I'll get back to you next week, hopefully as soon as this gets corrected, then I would be all right.
Yeah.
If they don't give you any finite time, I wouldn't wait for the call too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that text strip kind of assumes that they have said something about a rain check or a reschedule, because like, if they didn't, that's just, they're trying to cancel on you forever, which I also have a text script for. If you want to cancel on someone forever, just fucking tell them that.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I agree with that.
Just say like, hey, but why would you make the date at all? Just say, hey, I actually changed my mind about tonight.
Well, sometimes people get carried away.
It's happened to me before that I have scheduled a date with somebody and then he has done something or said some things or somehow indicated that I no longer want to go out with him, that he's made me uncomfortable or something makes me think that I just don't want to go on this date.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens. But then I think if that happens, then you should say like, hey, I've been thinking about it some more. I know I agreed to go out, but I'm actually thinking that I don't think we're very compatible, or whatever you want to say. I wish you the best of luck. I don't want to waste your time by going out.
Yeah, I guess that's the right thing to do.
It is. I mean, it is objectively.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the other person is like thinking that there's going to be a reschedule coming. Also, it's in your best interest to do it, because otherwise they're going to follow up with you and you don't want to talk to this person anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay. Next one. Why don't we do, I thought this was funny, when they use pet names too early.
I really don't like pet names. I don't even like them from somebody that I'm dating. And so I absolutely hate it when somebody that I've just matched with or somebody that I don't know that well is like, hey, gorgeous, or,
Yeah.
Well, we had one good one. Harry. It was.
Do you know Harry Jousey from Too Hot to Handle?
Yes.
He's an adorable young guy.
We have him on our podcast.
He calls everybody a hummingbird.
It's like my little hummingbird, or like.
But it comes with an Australian accent.
Yeah. So then
if somebody comes from New York and calls you a hummingbird, I would hang up the phone.
Yeah.
But if he calls you,
I know, it's a different situation.
Right.
But
that
but
sounds
if
adorable.
Like, hey, babe, and we've gone on one date, I would be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, that would not be something I'm cool with. And so usually what I will say to them in that situation is, I have to be honest with you, pet names like that, when we don't really know each other that well, make me a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But you don't think someone would take that the wrong way? And be like,
well,
why are you being so serious? Like,
but I think it's almost disrespectful if they don't know you. I mean, it's one thing if you've gone out several times and they're just being, they say, oh, gorgeous, whatever. But if you've gone out with a gentleman one time, I don't think it's appropriate. It's actually being rude.
I feel like I would just be like, LOL, like, I'm not your babe.
Yeah,
nice
exactly.
try, or something.
I mean, that works too.
That works.
I think that if somebody is offended by my boundary setting, then they're not the person for me.
Right.
Yeah. I like that rule.
Yeah, I
And,
think
like, maybe
boundaries
they-
are important.
Yeah.
And like I do think you can set them kindly. Like you don't have
Right.
to be like, you don't have to blow up on them and be
Right.
like, why would you call me that? Like,
Right.
you know, but I think that how somebody reacts to boundary setting tells me a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, how about when you're being breadcrumbed? Do you remember what breadcrumbing is?
No.
Allie,
We can start there.
Can you explain it to her?
Yeah. So breadcrumbing, it stems from like, you know, when you're like in the park, if people are like feeding ducks or pigeons or whatever, and they kind of
Course.
throw out bread and the pigeons like hop after them, they're like
Right.
following you. That's where it comes from. So breadcrumbing is when somebody's giving you just enough to keep you on the hook. So
Teasing.
a text. Yeah,
Mhm.
like they're sending you a text every now and again. Hey, how are you? But they're not actually doing anything to
Right.
move the relationship forward. They're
Right.
like keeping you warm.
So I would get rid of them immediately. That would be the end of the breadcrumbs.
But they could be interested in you, like you're just not sure. Like, why are they breadcrumbing you? It's worth asking or in some way.
No, I think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time, a waste of your time. And you know what? If they really wanted to see you, I'm still a firm believer. After you've texted once or twice, if somebody isn't saying, let's go have a drink, let's go have dinner, I mean, you know, cut it off. I mean, it's you're all too old. You're not in high school. So, you know, you just have to move on.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I like to directly communicate that.
Right.
So the way that the what I've said to people before is this one, I'll usually like say something funny about like whatever they said, like they'll pop up out of nowhere, they'll say something. And then I'll say something like, real talk though, popping up every now and then really isn't my jam. If that's you, no hard feelings, but it's not what I'm looking for.
Very good. That's a good one. I like that. I'm writing that one down. Kimberly, you need that. You need that one.
Because then that gives them the opportunity. And all my text scripts, I will not publish a text script on my website if I've never sent it myself. So that's one of the very first ones that I did. And I've gotten two different reactions to it. I've gotten, no, that's not who I am. You're totally right. Like, let's do this. Or silence.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, cool. That's who you are.
You have an answer.
Fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, fine. Bye.
Do you have one for like when you want to stop seeing somebody after like 2 or 3 dates?
Yes. So I call that my no ghosting script. I would say it's like probably the one that people use the most.
Right.
And it basically just says like, so usually you'll use this after you've been out with them, right? So like you went out with them last night, maybe they texted you and they said like, hey, I had a great time, or they followed up about something. And I keep it super simple and pretty vague. I say something like, you know, I had a great time too, or whatever they said. But as I've been thinking about it, I just don't feel the romantic connection that I'm looking for. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. I've definitely sent that one before.
I know, but I think you girls are too quick to do that. I just, from the older generation, you got to give people a chance. I mean, everybody is very nervous. Everybody is nobody is that sure of themselves anymore in dating, unless you're got together in high school or in college. So once you're out there in the real world, give somebody a couple of chances, unless somebody is repugnant to you or that you really, you know, have nothing in common with. You gotta sort of play along with it for a while.
A connection.
Well, sometimes the connection could be down the road. It could be in a month.
You that I am a big proponent of just go on the second date. Like, I think if I have a decent time with someone on a first date where I enjoy our conversation and I, you know, maybe I'm not super attracted to them, but like I enjoyed the conversation, I'll go out with them again. Not saying to send that text after a first date every time. No. But that's the framework that I would use when you do decide to break it off. I recently gave somebody 5 dates before sending that and then was like,
but I think your grandma, you're saying give someone like 10.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. When we were dating in the olden days, we dated a long time. And then all of a sudden, if that was the guy for you, then we made it. We said, all right, you're my guy.
Then people after a few dates will be like, are we exclusive? And you're like, well,
I don't think anybody after 3 or 4 dates today becomes exclusive. Do they?
Oh my God, you would be surprised at the people who are so mad at me in my comments because I'm not exclusive with people after 3 dates.
Okay. Oh, well, that's different. Exclusive means you're only dating that one person. And after 3 dates is ridiculous. You can't know if somebody is going to be
kind of the assumption.
Oh, well, then I'm glad I'm not dating now. Good luck to you too.
I don't subscribe to that, but like when
because I don't see how you could do that.
No, and when
you
I'll
really
post
don't
about
know
dates that
somebody after 2 or 3 dates. I mean, come on,
Exactly.
over a cup of coffee and a pizza.
It just gets confusing because one person might be like, yeah, I barely know you. Let's give it like, 6 dates so I get to know you. And then, but then the other person in that situation could be like, I'm really into this person. I want to be exclusive after like 3 dates. And then you're at a different point. Like,
well, I think I think 3 dates of being exclusive is very difficult.
I think it happens a lot.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe if you have a mad, passionate 3rd date. But it would have to be something that would become extremely passionate to say after 3 dates, we want to be exclusive. That's ridiculous. Then get engaged. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, you don't know somebody after 3 dates. You really don't.
I've done it before, but I regret it, honestly. And I don't really anymore, but you would be shocked to look in my comments when I say that I'm going on a 4th or a 5th or a 6th date with somebody. And so many people in the comments are like, drop him if you're not exclusive yet.
Wow. You're not going to get that comment from me. I think you're right. I don't think anybody knows each other.
It's also crazy because like there's that assumption too of like I did this panel recently and I was talking about somebody that I went like with no names, obviously, like I was like, yeah, I went on 10 dates with this person and XYZ. I forgot even what it was. And they were like, well, you were sleeping together. And I was like, no, I wasn't. And they were so shocked.
Well, that's too bad about
10 dates. It was like literally the room was in uproar.
Well,
and like it's crazy.
Well, I don't agree with that.
It's funny that people make those assumptions too, because I don't talk about my sex life on my TikTok like at all, a little bit on the podcast, but not on my TikTok. And people will just make assumptions and they'll be like, well, if you gave up the goods, then no wonder he never wanted to be exclusive. I'm like, excuse me, sir. Cause it's always a dude.
Right.
Like when did I say that? Like I never commented on that.
Right.
Yeah. It also, even if you were sleeping together, like that's not a reason for someone to be like, I got, what's that? If you get the milk for free, like,
buy the cow.
Whatever it is. Like it's dumb.
Well, that was an old way of thinking. If you've got the if you're sleeping with somebody, what do you need to go any further for? You already got it for free.
Meanwhile, like in my mind, I'm like, why would I buy the cow if I haven't tried the milk?
Right.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. You're absolutely right. Sometimes when you've got the milk and you don't like the milk, you want to give it all back.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, shit, I already bought this cow.
Exactly.
Like,
you got the cow. Trust me. That was my story, not you girls. So you have to be, it's a whole different world out there. And I think it shouldn't matter if somebody wants to date a long time or a short time. After a while, if you have something in common with somebody and it develops over time, and you could all of a sudden say, after 6 dates, I can see this going somewhere, or after 6 dates, say, you know what, it's not happening. And you,
well, I actually
but you
have
know
a question
yourself.
for Allie about that. Like, so these texts, let's say it's like, after 3 dates, it seems like easier to send a text like what you're saying, but let's say it was like 6+. Do you have to do a phone call? And do you have phone call scripts?
Oh, that's
I think it depends on your relationship with that person and how you normally communicate with them. Like I have been on more than 6 dates with somebody where we don't talk on the phone. So it would be weird to call him.
Yeah.
So I think you owe somebody a personal phone call after. When do you think somebody owes a call to somebody to break up and, over the phone or in person?
I think the idea is that like, it depends on your communication with that person. Like if you've never spoken on the phone before, it's like, I think a little bit weird to call them. I will say the guy that I broke up with most recently, we were dating for like 3 months, but we weren't exclusive. It was a whole TikTok nightmare.
Okay.
So I sent him a text that I wanted to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that would have been what I would do.
Yeah.
Because a cold call out of nowhere would be like, in my opinion, wild.
True. No, I would definitely say like, do you have time to chat later on the phone?
Right.
Yeah. And he knew what it was about.
And that's 3 months. And believe me, he knew also. By 3 months, he probably was reading the same script. He understood.
Yeah. Well, I told him, I said, I'm not feeling great about where we're at recently.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have, can we talk later? I personally don't think a in-person breakup is ever necessary unless you live together.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I feel like I would get a lot of shit from people if I was like, yeah, I broke up with them on the phone. I mean, that's an old thing. Like, you're always like, he broke up with you on the phone? That's hard, and they like friends freak out.
I think the reason is because, so if the person wanted to meet me in person, I absolutely would, barring any sort of like toxic
Right.
situation and my own safety or whatever,
Mhm.
assuming it was like a good amicable split. But for me, I didn't want to break up with this guy in person, nor do I really ever want to, because I know I'm going to cry, even if I'm the one doing it. I know I'm going to be upset, even if I'm the one doing it. I want to be by myself in my own space, not in public, not in his apartment, and not with him in my apartment having to ask him to leave.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's always better to go somewhere else though, I think. Like because then you can leave whenever you want.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but then I have to leave. Like then I have to like travel home. Like
Yeah.
it's just so much better to be like to cry in my own space.
Okay.
I understand that. I mean, it's easier. I just always thought it was like you had to.
Well, no, but there are no rules set
Yeah.
in blood.
I don't think you
It's just what you
do.
feel comfortable with, and how long the relationship really was. I mean, if it's
like
if it's a 6 months or a year, I think you owe somebody a face-to-face conversation. Both parties want to have an ending that you talk it through.
Yeah.
But a couple of months, I think you can
The
text
other
it.
thing I do think is really important if you're going to break up with somebody in person is they need to know, not necessarily that it's
Before.
a breakup conversation, but they need to know that this is not just a
Yeah.
date.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't want to get all dolled up thinking I'm going on a date with you and then you
Oh,
break up
yeah.
with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
That-
think saying, "Oh, do you have time to take a walk, or do you have time to get a coffee to talk about things?" and not being like,
That
"I
I'm
made
not
a
happy."
reservation at your favorite restaurant at 8:00 on
Yes.
Saturday."
Right.
Like,
Or,
Right.
or like my ex-boyfriend did. We planned a picnic in Prospect Park. I brought picnic items
oh,
and he broke up with me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, I think you need to give a heads up somewhere. Something's wrong in the
yeah, and,
relationship.
like a non-romantic setting.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I
I'm
think like many boyfriends ago, I broke up with him in a restaurant because I thought like it was good to do a public place, and that was not good because it was like a sit-down restaurant. Like I was crying and people were looking at me.
Well, that's what.
oh yeah.
Yeah. That's no good.
That's
Yeah.
tough.
That's
I
no
do think like if anybody's concerned for like the other person's reaction and your like safety, then phone call or public place. But other than that, I think
Yeah.
public is
Right.
Yeah.
rough. Yeah, I was like crumpled on the grass of Prospect Park crying
with
and,
your
like,
picnic
Oh.
with your
with my
picnic goodies.
picnic. And then this is when I like New Yorkers are so amazing and they get such a bad rap because this girl, I was eating like the chips that I had in my picnic basket, like crying on my side on the grass of Prospect Park. And this girl came up to me and offered me her dip.
Oh, that's so nice. We like that girl.
I love
Yeah.
that.
She was like, "You could use this more than me. Would you like
Right.
a dip?" I was like, "Yes."
I'm sure you like never had dip again after that. Just
Yeah,
scarring.
it's ruined forever. I was just like shoveling it into my
Yeah.
mouth in Prospect Park.
So you're pretty open about your dating life, both on TikTok and on your podcast. Like, has a guy ever listened and like said something to you, or have you ever felt like nervous to share something?
Nobody has ever said something to me about it. I
Mhm.
assume that people have listened. I tell everyone about it. I'm on first dates. I don't give them the
Mhm.
handle.
Okay.
Most people don't even ask.
Hmm.
Okay.
Like only like one or two people have, and I've been on dozens of first dates since having this account. Only one or two people have ever even asked. But they
I
can
have such
very
a
easily
different
find it.
experience. Like people, like when I tell them what I do, they like look at it in front of me, and I'm like, can we not watch a video right now about my grandma like on our date?
Well, it's a
Oh,
little
wow.
different.
Yeah, ours is like a little bit more like playing with each other.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
still.
Where-
Do you tell them the handle like up front?
Well, it's the name. Yeah, because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I do so. I think they say what's it called. Like, I don't think I'm ever like my podcast. Excuse my grandma is. I'll usually be like, I have a podcast with my grandma and a TikTok, and they'll be like, what's it called?
Right.
So let's finish the episode with a game that we play with all of our guests, Grandma Gail's
Oh, fun.
old-fashioned dating quiz. So basically, we go through a few scenarios and decide whether, based off your answers, whether you're more of a modern dater or more of a traditional old-fashioned dater.
Love it.
Okay. First one is, would you rather receive a call or a text from the person you're with?
Oh, I think it depends. I mean, I like phone calls, but
Oh, you
sometimes
do? That's
Oh, I do.
interesting.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
okay.
definitely do.
Okay.
But I think text messages, they each have their place.
Yeah.
Like I think I don't want a phone call in the middle of the workday to say hi,
Yeah.
but I appreciate chatting on the phone before we go to bed.
Would you sleep with someone on the first date?
Yes, but I don't want to in the future.
Okay, so you
Well,
have,
then don't.
but you
Then don't.
Oh, that's
For
easier
heaven's
said
sakes,
than
don't.
done.
Yeah, it's,
That's
yeah.
easier said than done. No, I think for me, I think if you if you are feeling it, go for it. I truly don't think it has any bearing on like the relationship's viability. For me, I know that it has a lot of impact on my own emotional attachment to somebody. And so I don't think it affects how people view you. Like, I don't think it's I'm not somebody who thinks like, oh, if you sleep with them, they won't respect you. No. But I do know that I will get emotionally attached to somebody when I sleep with them. And then if it doesn't work out, whether that's the reason or not, I will be more upset.
Yes.
Right. I think that's a female perspective.
Yeah, that's very common. Dating apps or setups?
Oh, dating apps.
Move in together before getting engaged or after?
Oh, before. That actually is a major piece of dating advice my mom gave me, because she and my dad lived together before they got engaged, before they got married. And she was like, thank God I found out the things I found out when I still had time to decide that I was choosing those things and not stuck with those things.
Yeah, that's true.
Who should pay for the date, or should you split it?
The person who asks for the date should pay for the date. But I always offer to split, even if the guy has asked me. And if I ask someone on a date, I will offer to pay for the whole thing. Usually they don't say yes, but I'm ready and willing to. And I think that if you ask somebody out, you should be ready to pay.
I agree.
Pretty much all modern.
She's all modern.
Yeah.
She's a modern dater.
I'm not surprised.
It's finally someone who Kimmy can relate to.
Yeah. Everyone always is on your team.
Most people are on the traditional side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even if it's like 3 out of 5, like most people.
For some reason.
I don't know.
I think they're probably fibbing because they're trying to make me feel good.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, it's too funny. Yeah, I had a feeling when you said modern versus traditional, I was like, I'm probably going to be modern.
You were. That's all right. That's good.
Thank you so much for joining us on Excuse My Grandma. Will you tell people how they can find your TikTok and podcast?
Yes, this was so fun. Thank you for having me. You can find me at Finding Mr. Height. It's Finding MR Height on TikTok, Instagram. FindingMrHeight.com is where you can see all my coaching. And my podcast is called Finding Mr. Height, the podcast. Very, very consistent branding.
Yeah.
I love the name. It's great.
Yes.
Thank you
so much. Hope you guys liked the episode with Allie. For our 50s movie of the week, we are doing Giant,
which was a classic. It's James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor,
Rock Hudson, 1956.
But it's a classic. Should be seen by everybody. It's not light, but it's wonderful, and the acting is beyond fabulous. Everybody enjoy it.
Hope you guys liked the episode this week. Follow us on TikTok at Excuse My Grandma and on Instagram at Excuse My Grandma, and we will see you next week.